Welcome to the Explainer. Today we are looking at a really radical idea from a system called Ruachnet. It's this complete shift in thinking they call elections as code, where the authority for running an election isn't given to people, but to code, to verifiable automated programs.
So, let's just kick things off with a huge question. What if we could mathematically guarantee a fair election? I mean, what if you didn't need to trust the system at all, because the system itself could prove its fairness and security to everyone all the time?
See, the way we do things now usually has one big point of failure: centralization. We have to put our trust in people, in election commissions, in servers, and that creates all these vulnerabilities. This system proposes something different. It wants to replace all that trust with verifiable cryptographic proof. Think of it like a digital seal that is mathematically impossible to fake.
And that dependency on trust, that's where the problems really start. It just opens the door for potential fraud, for processes that nobody can really see into, and even for voter suppression. Now, those are big concerns in any democracy, but they get seriously amplified in more fragile systems, where it's easier for political pressure to mess with things.
So the solution that Ruachnet is putting forward isn't just some tech upgrade, it's a completely different way of doing things. It hands over the electoral authority to these things called smart contracts, which are basically code that lives on a public blockchain. These contracts enforce the election rules automatically, which takes human error and, human bias right out of the equation.
So the absolute core of this whole idea is the smart contract. Just think of it like a digital agreement where all the election rules, who gets to vote, when they can vote, how the votes are tallied, are written into a program. And once that program is on the blockchain, it just runs exactly as it was written, forever. I love how the source material puts it. It's basically a digital robot lawyer. You can't bribe it, you can't pressure it, and once it's out there, you can't change it. It just executes its logic, plain and simple, making sure the rules are exactly the same for everybody every single time. And the process itself is pretty straightforward. First, you take the election laws and you translate them into code. Second, you lock that code onto the blockchain, which means it can't be tampered with. And third, the program just does its thing. It enforces the rules all by itself. Nobody has to manually count votes or check if someone's eligible. The contract handles everything.
Okay, so that's the theory. But how does this actually work in a real election, with all the different positions and different voting districts? Let's take a look at how this system actually builds a secure digital version of a ballot.
In this system, every single elected position gets its very own unique smart contract. So the presidential election is one contract, the race for governor in a specific county is a completely different one, and your local ward representative is another one still. Each one is its own little election machine living on the blockchain.
And this table here shows you exactly how the boundaries are built right into the code. The contract for president, it'll accept a vote from anyone with a nationwide digital token. But the contract for a county governor, well, it's programmed to automatically reject any vote that doesn't come from a wallet registered to that specific county. And that right there is the key takeaway. Think about it. That whole process of checking voter rolls and making sure people are voting in the right place, which is often manual, inconsistent, and open to manipulation, is now totally automated. The system doesn't need to check a clerk to check an address. Your eligibility is enforced by cryptography. It just plugs a major hole in the old system.
Now, this system doesn't just change how we vote, it totally rewires when an election even starts. Elections stop being just these things on a calendar, instead become programmable events.
So, an election smart contract can be set off in one of three ways. The first is the one we're all used to, the cyclic election. Every 5 years, programmed to kick off right on schedule. The second is for contingencies. Say an office suddenly becomes vacant because of a resignation or something. The contract can be set up to automatically trigger a special election. But the third trigger, this is by far the most dynamic, the most democratic feature. Any verified citizen can go onto the blockchain and start a petition to recall an elected official. This puts accountability directly into the hands of voters, not just on election day, but any time. So what does that take? Well, a petition gets started on-chain and it collects digital support signatures. If it manages to hit a preset threshold, in this model it's just 15% of the eligible voters in that specific area, the system doesn't just send an email to someone, nope, it automatically kicks off a formal recall referendum. This process completely decentralizes political accountability. A petition gets submitted,
The signatures are collected verifiably right there on the blockchain. And if enough people agree, the recall vote happens. Power stops being this thing you only use once every few years. It becomes this constant, verifiable tool that citizens themselves hold.
So let's just pull back for a second and really look at the massive change this whole system represents. It's a fundamental move away from a model of governance we've had for centuries, a model that absolutely relies on our faith in institutions and the people inside them. The whole model gets flipped on its head. It stops asking you to trust that the votes were counted correctly or that the voter rolls are accurate. Instead, it gives you the power to verify every single step for yourself on a transparent public record. Democracy in this world is guaranteed by math.
So what this technology really offers is a new foundation for how we govern ourselves, one built on mathematical proof instead of human trust. And that leaves us with one last, pretty provocative thought. If the very rules of our democracy can be written into permanent, unchangeable code, who on earth should we trust to write it?